Hello, everybody. This is Pal Barabajagal, Jean, doing part 2 of Larry Graves' The Canadian Stud Muffins contest, where you would show an album cover that you love by an artist and also your least favorite album cover by that artist. I'm using it as an excuse to do a really long video because I already did part 1 where I listed 6 artists. Larry said that if you wanted you could do 12 artists total. So I took a break and now I'm back. I'm going to do 6 more artists. However, I've got to say, I have so much stuff here. I'll probably go off on tangents and stuff. So go grab your cat, settle in, maybe go take a break now and then between artists because I just talk forever, so, and maybe I'll win the contest, who knows. I'm gonna give it my best shot. I have a lot of junk here, so I'll just talk about it. The first artist I wanted to do is the Lovin' Spoonful. I want to show a couple things related to the band and then I'll show you their albums. John Sebastian, Zal Yanovsky, Steve Boone, their bassist, and Joe Butler, their drummer, were the original members of the Lovin' Spoonful. I'm interested in a lot of the 60s rock bands who came from the folk backgrounds, like the Byrds and the Turtles and the Mamas and the Papas. And they all kind of have some similar influences. The Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane too should be included in that. One thing that you often hear about, the kind of Beatles onward rock and roll is that, it's a direct line from, say, the 50s rock and roll, like Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and Little Richard. And then there's kind of this fallow period where they were, in the army or band or something, and then it came back and it was the Beatles. Well, there was stuff going on in between there. There were also other things going on in the 50s. So one thing that was really important was the folk scene, which I want to show an album, and I've already misplaced it. It's great. So there was this record that came out in 1952 called the American Folk Music Anthology, and it was created by a record collector named Harry Smith. Harry Smith had something like 10,000 78s from the 1920s up through the 30s. This is pretty much as important to the whole folk scene as the Beatles appearing on Ed Sullivan. You can make that argument real easily. Somebody like Jerry Garcia, somebody like Bob Dylan, somebody like John Sebastian would tell you they studied this 6-record set that came out in 1952, and it's really important. So there's a great documentary I just watched this morning that I've meant to watch for a long time called The Old Weird America, the Henry Smith Anthology. It was reissued in 1997. That's what this is. This has booklet that was just like the original. I actually was able to get the original one from the library before this was reissued, so I had it on cassette tape. And big, huge booklet put out by the Smithsonian Institution. And then here's 3 CDs. So it's something like 78 songs. That documentary's awesome. Elvis Costello's in it. Lou Reed's in it. David Johansen from the New York Dolls. It's just who's who of all these. The Folksmen, Spinal Tap are in it, because A Mighty Wind. And, there's just lots and lots of people you wouldn't expect in it. Beck and Nick Cave's in it. So I recommend taking an hour and a half to watch the Old Weird America, the Harry Smith Anthology documentary. Okay, enough of that. But what I wanted to say is John Sebastian, The Lovin' Spoonful, a lot of the Greenwich music scene. Some of the songs on their various albums come from this. So there's that. Some of those bands. This is, okay, I have to get the right pile of stuff over here. This is John Sebastian's band before The Lovin' Spoonful, the Even Dozen Jug Band. You know, there's like 12 people in this band or something. Jug band music is what the Lovin' Spoonful often described themselves as. They had a song called that. Also good time music. You know, they were really into being like an upbeat, happy band, at least at the beginning. And that was one of the reasons Zal kind of started drifting out of the band later, as John Sebastian's songs became more personal. He wanted to keep it like the formula it was at the beginning, so there was kind of a musical clash going on. And then he got busted for pot, and then they replaced him with Jerry Yester. Anyway, this is Fred Neil's Bleecker and McDougal. Both of these are from this Greenwich folk scene set, but John Sebastian plays harmonica all over this album, and it's a great folk album. But we're talking about the Lovin' Spoonful. So the Lovin' Spoonful had, you know, 3 albums with the original lineup and 2 soundtracks, and then Zal left, and then John Sebastian left, and so they had an album with Jerry Yester, and then they had just Joe Butler, the drummer, kind of forging on with the remainder of the Lovin' Spoonful and made a final album. So I like, of course, the pictures on the original albums. I would say, like, here's Hums of the Lovin' Spoonful. I wouldn't pick this as my best because they're kind of photos that have all been sort of cut out and pasted together. But still, you know, this is probably my favorite of the original lineup albums, where you have Zal kind of imitating the statue in the back with the hat, so they look like they're cracking each other up. And that's the thing, Zal and John Sebastian were more, you know, kind of the friends in the band, and the rhythm section was they were kind of more their friends. So here's the first album here. I would say that's probably the best band photo, though I love this one for Daydream. But I have it, like, you know, on CDs and things, so you don't get the same cover. So those are the good ones. Then, you know, Zal left, and they look kind of all bummed out on the back. Well, at least John Sebastian does. You know, he's not looking too happy there. He's thinking that he's going to leave pretty soon. But John Sebastian also decided to draw the cover of this album. And it's kind of this wacky scene going on the beach where it's all these sort of monsters around the band. And pardon me, but you shouldn't, like, pursue artistry. You know, it's pretty damn ugly. Kind of funny, but pretty damn ugly. Plus, they look bummed out on the back, and he kind of continues it into doing his doodles as far as the song titles. However, this is a really good album. I like this album a lot. I think it's on par with the first 3 albums and the soundtracks. Okay, then John left the band. I haven't ever really listened to this album. I know one of the songs from a compilation, and it's a good song. This is when they had to go get outside writers, you know, because John was the songwriter. Well, it kind of looks like the Lion King. I mean, the Tiger King. What is going on here? Oh, man. You know, there's airbrushing, so you better be careful. And then there's the back, because he's like Joe Butler's sitting there eating a piece of meat because he's like feral or something, just like the lion. Yeah, so I always would see this in the store and go, "Ugh." But, you know, so pretty bad. Sad end to a great band. Then they broke up in 1969. They had a couple of reunions over the years. Zal died in, I think, 2002. But really, really an important band that kind of gets overlooked. One thing you might not know is that I got this off Wikipedia. At the peak of the band's success, producers of the television series that later became the Monkees initially planned to build their series around the Lovin' Spoonful. But they had trouble with, you know, doing the songwriting credits and stuff, so they opted to create their own band of musicians. So they were kind of going to be the original Monkees. Anyway, they're a great band. Another thing about the Lovin' Spoonful is they were on the label Kama Sutra, and a band that later was on Kama Sutra was one of my favorite bands, NRBQ. So there's the 70s Kama Sutra label, and John Sebastian has said over and over again he felt that NRBQ picked up where the Lovin' Spoonful left off, and that they were the band that took over for the Lovin' Spoonful. And they've collaborated a lot. There's lots of live tapes of them backing up John Sebastian. They also backed up Roger McGuinn a lot. Okay, so that's that. I got one down. Okay, who's going next? My list for next is going to be REM. Well, I've got my REM shirt on. For a long time, I considered REM one of my favorite bands. Pretty much got into them about 1984. Heard of them in 83, but got into them in 84. Around, I'd say 2005 or so, I was kind of about done with them. 2006. They had an album around then that I still thought was good, but after a few that I was kind of lukewarm on, then their last album I really didn't like that much. But I was a huge REM fan. I mean, I went and lived in Athens, Georgia, met them a number of times. You know, so I have a lot of REM stuff still. I don't really want to sit here and trash them because there's a lot of the stuff I love. So I'm decided to go ahead and show some of that stuff. What can I say? That I would say my favorite covers are, of course, I'm going to be sentimental and kind of go for the stuff that I started off with. I have fancy versions of things too. So this is Reckoning. It's in one of these covers. I know that looks kind of weird. Michael Stipe was very involved with the artwork with REM. And I saw Rachel's video where she kind of was saying, you know, REM's artwork's not that great. There's a lot of kind of lousy covers. And I'd say it's up and down. Unfortunately, I think some of the better artwork he did wasn't necessarily on the covers, though I like this one a lot. This is a movie called Athens, Georgia, Inside Out. It's a documentary that came out, I think, in 1986 or 87. It was one of the things that inspired me to go and live in Athens for a year. There is a really great interview section of the film where they are talking to Howard Finster. And Howard Finster was a reverend who was an artist, folk artist, and Michael became friends with him. And he painted this, and Michael collaborated on it. He did a lot of kind of spiritual, sacred art is what he would call it. So things that were kind of Bible related, but it would be like snakes and angels and stuff like that. And he had this house where his whole garden was, you know, like a folk art sculpture. So the first video they really did for MTV, well, they did a video before that for a song off of their Chronic Town EP, but their MTV video for Radio Free Europe, they're walking around that bizarre sculpture garden. So this is kind of the continuation of their collaboration with Howard Finster. Howard Finster then drew the cover of Talking Heads' Little Creatures. So it's that same kind of artwork where he has David Byrne holding, you know, the world on the back of his head like Atlas. So I like that cover. And the back has Michael Stipe's writing on it. He has that really scrawly writing. You can see he put the titles of the songs around this colored snake as well. And then the package is nice. It has, I always thought this was kind of funny, where it's kind of the rough thing on the inside of where the guys would be, and there's the picture of the guys. But, you know, that's his art style. It's real kind of rough. And then I love the cover of Fables. Fables of the Reconstruction, their third album, is this, you know, book on fire, and then these dark colored tone pictures of the band. Then the other side has that box with the ear. I just think it's cool looking. This is a nice package that has, you know, a booklet in it with notes by Peter Buck, of course. That's one thing in earlier REM, really Peter Buck was the spokesman for a long time, and that kind of shifted around, you know, out of time, and as they got a lot bigger, Michael kind of became more extroverted and talked a lot more, but Peter used to be the main person in REM who you had interviews with, and he's a huge record fan, so he would talk about his favorite artists. He loves Randy Newman, he loves Patti Smith, you know, they helped get me into a lot of bands, Wire, over and over and over again. So yeah, here's more of that package, and a big poster in it. I'm not gonna take it out, and photos of those pictures on the inside. So yeah, Mike Mills. Pretty cool. That's the thing, is I usually try to spend the money and get a fancy REM box, but I don't have all of them. So I also have just a ton of REM 45s. This is my REM 45 case. And I was in the fan club for many years, so at Christmas they would send out 45s for Christmas for, I think it was $10 a year was your fan club membership. But this, I don't know how much this is worth. This is the first one, where it's Television See No Evil backed with Parade of the Wooden Soldiers. They often would do a punk rock cover and then like a Christmas song, as far as what usually the Christmas single was. So one of these is The Vibrators' Baby Baby, and one is Ghost Reindeer in the Sky. Here's Silver Bells. And I love the art on these. You know, it's this textured paper. So, you know, there's cool art. There's just some things like, we were saying, Rachel was saying she really didn't like Out of Time because it has just a logo and then it has kind of these photographs that are taped together. It's just sort of color and texture. But I'll show you some of the ones I would consider the least attractive, but they still kind of, some of them I kind of like. So yeah, there's, this is kind of heretical, whatever, blasphemous. This is their first album, Murmur. People love this album. This was the one that Rolling Stone right off the bat really did a big positive review, and it kind of got the ball rolling on REM. But it looks like a big pile of hay. And it took me years, because I'm not from the South, to figure out what they were talking about when they would say kudzu. Kudzu is a vine that covers the South. It's an invasive vine. And this is a photo in winter, so it's all dried up and dead. But when I went down to Athens, it was in June, and it was more like a big, huge living jungle. So it wakes up and crawls all over cars and houses and everything and just swallows vacant lots. But the fantastic thing about kudzu is it smells like grape soda. I just love the smell of these big purple kudzu blossoms. However, I still think that looks like a pile of hay. The tressel's cool, though. That's the trestle on the back of Murmur. And, you know, they look like kids. They're all about 21 or something there. There's Michael with hair and glasses. So yeah, Murmur. Great album. So's Reckoning, so's Fables. Reckoning is the jangle pop album. If there's somebody who doesn't know early REM and likes jangle pop, Sam St. John, go buy Reckoning. Then this is my least favorite album cover, Around the Sun. This is also an album I'm not that keen on. The thing it makes me think of is they're just kind of like aliens, skinny aliens, where and Around the Sun is kind of about riding the planet around the sun for another year. I don't know. It just really, this album is kind of a bummer to me, but it might also be my age and being with them for a long time and just getting to the point where, you know, they weren't doing a lot for me anymore. Now this one, I would say, is a real bland cover. Eponymous. The word eponymous means same title as the name of the band. So it's kind of like saying this album is named REM, but they called it eponymous because they wanted to use a big word. So it's just like a doodle that you'd put on the telephone book here, and another doodle like on the telephone book over some wheat. And it says on the side, file under grain. And it's more or less the same stuff on the back where you've got the doodle again and titles. This is a collection of B-sides, which, you know, I have on 45s. But the thing that kind of saves it for me is there's something really funny on the inside. So Michael Stipe in high school had really bad acne. And apparently when he had his senior yearbook photo taken, they tried to clean up his acne. So there's a picture of that photo that he used for the inside, and then he put the words, "They airbrushed my face," on it. So, I mean, I think that's funny. Anyway, I think, is that going to be it for REM? I think that's pretty good. I covered REM pretty good for you. Okay, on to the next pile of stuff here. Sorry, this is Larry, your contest makes a mess in my room. I dropped my notes, and my next band is going to be Jonathan Richman. Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. Jonathan Richman, you know him, you love him, or if you don't know him, Larry's talked about this movie a number of times, Something About Mary, the Cameron Diaz, Ben Stiller comedy. Jonathan Richman and his drummer Tommy Larkin, I think I've got it right, are basically sitting up in a tree or walking around and kind of narrating the movie. And Jonathan Richman as a character is an eccentric guy. He's kind of very genuine, almost annoyingly so, but you know, you either find him really charming and love the guy, or he drives you nuts. So I find him charming and also understandably eccentric. So I had an album called Berserkly Chartbusters. I don't have that anymore. That had Earthquake and maybe Greg Kihn, the Rubinoos, and then 4 songs by Jonathan Richman. And those are some of my favorite Jonathan Richman songs. It had a really bland cover. I have all those songs on a couple of the collections I have. I think this one, and oh, I've got all these things all over. Things I didn't even talk about, but that's great. I don't need to talk about them. So Jonathan Richman we're talking about. Anyway, Berserkly Chartbusters, I got into him through those songs. They're on this too. This is a really good compilation if you want 1970s Jonathan Richman, which ranges from, you know, proto-punk to kiddie songs. I mean, there's songs on here like Abominable Snowman in the Market, Hey There Little Insect, Here Come the Martians. It was almost like he was a super hip Velvet Underground fan and then decided he wanted to totally change direction and alienate a lot of those fans, so he became practically an acoustic act, and you know, he has an agenda sometimes, and it's kind of funny. Like this is great because at the end of this collection there's a live version of Ice Cream Man, and you can tell that there's members of the audience who are annoyed by him and just want him to get off the stage. And he does, you know, the last verse about 8 times, just, you know, bother them. But he also writes great songs. There's great songs on here, and if you get used to just kind of the charm of it and the genuine kind of opinions he has, I just like Jonathan Richman. But this is the first album. This is the one that's more like a Velvet Underground punk rock album. There's the songs. And I love that cover. However, the one I'm picking for my favorite cover is, oh man. Okay, I'm taking the booklet out so you can see it better. Jonathan Goes Country. Because look at that picture. So he's got the really shiny boots that he's looking at going, oh, I don't know. And then the best part, I mean, he's the last person who should ever go country, right? But this is actually a pretty good album. There's a few versions of some of his 80s songs that he does country, and he also picks some country covers that are appropriate for Jonathan Richman. But then he bought the boots and he's walking off. Oh, I just think that's the best. I laughed so hard when that album came out. Yeah, there's a lot of humor, you know. And then for worst cover, well, he went through a divorce. So, and Jonathan Richman is kind of somebody who you're expecting happy songs from. So he's just kind of bummed out. I'm So Confused is the name of the album. And it's bleak and sad, you know. So, but then he got married again, and he kind of took a different direction. He likes to do songs in Spanish. You know, I'm not going to explain Jonathan Richman either. This is a really good album. And that's kind of more a typical Jonathan Richman cover. It's just a picture of him and his striped shirt and whatever. So, and this is the most recent one. And I don't know, it's kind of where he's at now, which is all right. My favorites are the 80s and the early 90s albums. Okay, so there goes my Jonathan Richman collection over here. Who have I got next? I've got Nick Lowe next. So, Nick Lowe, of course, he was in a band called Brinsley Schwartz, which were a country rock band from the UK. Had about 6 albums. They really were a good band that people forget. And their band kind of failed and didn't go anywhere after a while, so he was kind of sleeping on couches and stuff. But he became a producer, produced a lot of new wave bands, including Elvis Costello, The Damned. One of the first production jobs he also had was members from his band, Brinsley Schwartz, in their new band, The Rumor, who later backed Graham Parker. I think the production on here is under a pseudonym. Yeah, Robert John Lang. Well, I think that's Nick Lowe, because Nick Lowe produced this. He kind of has a weird sense of humor, too. One of the reasons I like him is there's a lot of humor to his early stuff, especially. So, this album, The Rumor, came out when Rumors by Fleetwood Mac was a huge album. So they took Rumor and Rumors, you know, plural here, not plural here. They made the title of the album Max. So it's like M-A-C-S. So Fleetwood Mac, plural. And, you know, you can't do one joke, you have to do it twice. So Nick Lowe's first EP on the Stiff record label, David Bowie's Low, had come out. And of course, David Bowie spells his album L-O-W. Nick Lowe's name is spelled L-O-W-E. So he decided to spell David Bowie's name B-O-W-I. And this is his Bowie EP. On Stiff, Nick Lowe. So this EP is great. I used to have this and got it again recently. It's bonus tracks on Jesus of Cool here, which is my pick for my favorite Nick Lowe album. I got this a long time ago as an LP, which I have here. Here we go with the LPs. In the United States, it was called Pure Pop for Now People. He borrowed a bunch of guitars from different people and a bunch of clothes and did this persona thing where he was pretending to be a hippie, pretending to be, you know, a heavy metaler, like a cheesy folky guy, a sincere folky guy, a power popper with a Rickenbacker bass. This is a Paisley Telecaster bass that's really rare. This is a Burns bass. People say that this is Dave Edmunds. This is not Dave Edmunds. This is actually Nick Lowe. I've read that several times, that there are some people who think this is not Nick Lowe, but all these pictures are Nick Lowe. So that's the American cover, and they changed the name. Jesus of Cool didn't go over, so they changed it to Pure Pop for Now People. Here's the UK one, which has slightly different pictures from the same sessions. This is a recent reissue that really isn't worth it, because I don't like that they took some of those Telecaster bass pictures and just tinted them so they're a kind of different color. This is the same bass, but it's just not as good looking. And it's, you know, kind of a lot of the same pictures. I love that picture on the back, though, with the Telecaster and the garbage can. That's from a single. But these songs are, if you have the other albums, you don't need to get this, except it's on green vinyl. This is really great, though. This is the way to get it, because it folds out. It has all the extra tracks. Folds out so it's, You know, there he is, Jesus of Cool, like a cross. And has the picture from the American album on the inside, has that Bowie EP on it. And I played this album to death. I love this Nick Lowe album. I love a lot of them, but that's, you know, the one that's sentimental to me most of all. So, oh, and I wanted to show you this. Lately, he's had a backing band who are called Los Straitjackets, and they'd been around for a number of years as an instrumental band. They're these guys who all wear Mexican wrestling masks, and when they're on stage, the lead singer just speaks in Spanish, and he speaks kind of corny Spanish because he really doesn't speak Spanish normally. So they're kind of a joke band, but they're really good. So that's become his backing band, and they did a Nick Lowe tribute album called What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Nick Lowe. Oh, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and the Los Straitjackets. And here's Nick Lowe, but here's the members of the band, and they've got, you know, as you can tell, it's pretty awesome. It looks a lot like the original album. You can see here, here's Pure Pop. Whoops. Here we go. Here's Pure Pop. Okay. Oh, and he produced Blood and Chocolate. Elvis Costello, among lots of other records. Okay, so least favorite Nick Lowe cover. Well, there's two I'm going to pick. He was also in Rockpile with Dave Edmunds. There's Los Straitjackets albums. I love this cover too. This is a recent album, The Confessor. This is a really good album, but I really like this cover. So for a later album cover, I like that one. The ones I don't like, I like the cover of Impossible Bird too. The ones I don't like, however, would be Nick Lowe, Pinker and Prouder Than Previous. I mean, it's just his picture with pink lettering that obscures him. And there he is on the back. You know, not that great. So that one's a lose for me. And also this album, The Old Magic, where it's just the cheesy chick picture. I mean, not to knock her, but it just looks, she looks really corny. Okay, I think I got my Nick Lowe albums down. Who's next? Okay, now I'm going to go to two bands that a lot of people out there, if they know Nick Lowe and they know Jonathan Richman, they might not know these bands. These are Seattle bands. And people think of Seattle as far as the grunge scene. Well, there was this period of time in the 1980s where there were kind of wacky pop bands that were somewhat influenced by new wave and pop, but they were also influenced by 60s music. And they were funny too. And one of the main bands was the Young Fresh Fellows. And I was a Young Fresh Fellows fan. I went and saw Billy Bragg play, and there were two local opening bands. This was when I was 16, right? 15, 16. I was interested in local bands in Seattle. I lived 80 miles to the south, so I really didn't know what local bands there were. If they played taverns, bars, I wouldn't be able to go see them. But every now and then local bands would play as an opening act on some rock show I could see. So I was always trying to figure out if there was some band I liked who was a local band. And this band called the Dwindles played first, and then the Young Fresh Fellows played in 1984. And I kind of liked the Dwindles more because I felt they were kind of like a 60s pop band something. And the Young Fresh Fellows kind of confused me because they all dressed in weird clothes, and it was kind of thrift story, kind of clashing, trashy, but also seemed kind of 60s-ish. So I kind of couldn't tag them. They were sort of like a surf type band and a pop type band. And, you know, it took me a couple years to realize I was a big fan of theirs. But I eventually started buying their records. Like about 2 years later, I started buying any Young Fresh Fellows record I could. So, where's my pile of records? I have mainly CDs for them here. Here we go. This was their first record, The Fabulous Sounds of the Pacific Northwest. And I would say this is probably my favorite, their third album, as far as a cover. I just like, you know, the colors. It kind of looks like an old jazz album. And it's called The Men Who Love Music. There's some really funny songs on this album. Like My Friend Ringo is actually a sincere sort of song. But When the Girls Get Here, oh my God. When the girls get here, we'll talk about integrated circuits and things and show them how smart we are. We'll do our funky dance. You know, these guys are awesome. They have a song on here called Amy Grant, and it's a funk song all about Amy Grant, the Christian singer, and it's pretty funny, where alone at night she fantasizes about Barry White. And then there's lots of songs on here that are from B-sides as far as bonus tracks. So I'm seeing things like, Beer Money, which was great, because there used to be commercials on MTV where they had the Del Fuegos doing commercials for, was it Miller Beer? But they were like, we're an American band, and, you know, they were promoting an indie band, but it was a beer commercial. So the fellows took a song on that where they're doing the thing they say, which is, we're an American band and let's play some rock and roll. Beer Money. Anyway, so yeah, but the members of this band, Scott McCoy, Tad Hutchinson, Jim Sangster, originally Chuck Carroll left, and then Kurt Block from the Fastbacks became their guitarist. To me, these are like a super group from Seattle. So I have lots of Fellows albums. Tad, their drummer, is like a surf music Keith Moon. And Scott kind of has a reedy sort of voice, but he's really funny. He's a really good lyricist, kind of also dark humor. They played the Replacement singer Paul Westerberg's wedding. They were his favorite band in the 80s. They became friends with REM, and Scott wound up joining REM in around the time of Automatic for the People and Monster, because he became friends with Peter Buck, and then he was sort of the fifth member of REM, and also some other Seattle musicians wound up being part of their touring band, because Peter Buck had moved to Seattle and later moved to Portland. And anyway, there's this REM connection with the Young Fresh Fellows, but they are really cool, funny. This album, Topsy Turvy, I love the cover of that too. Again, colorful. I love Electric Bird Digest, where they have just these bad outfits on, and they're like only on one side. And then on the inside, I love the CD, because I used to have Audubon bird guides, Peterson bird guides, and they use this from one of those where you're identifying the silhouette of the bird, but then they have like a bird that's upside down and a bird that's down here on the ground. They just cut out and put them in dumb positions and stuff. So that's the inside of the CD. Tad, their drummer, does a lot of the art. Tad's kind of a cartoony artist, so this is sort of what he draws. He draws these people who often have an eyeball that's kind of on the other side of their head, and he draws like strange things, like here, this person's serving their boot to these women who are sitting there, and it says this one's for the ladies, and they're sitting there with a bunch of typewriters. That's a good cover. This is my least favorite Fellows cover, I guess. It's Low Beat Time, where it's just blurry. It's kind of got a cup. I like the back of the album. I like that they're sitting there with Rufus Thomas in the car. Rufus Thomas, who was a famous 50s rock and roll musician, did Walking the Dog originally. He sings Green Green on this. And then there's the woman with the cocktail. This also is not a great cover. It's just a really blurry photo of them on stage. I had a parrot who chewed it up, but it's more of an EP. It's Japan Tour 93. And this one, I like this one. This is Tad art, but it's a guy without a head. This is their album. I think this is. They're quirky. Oh, I love this cover. This is a tribute album to the Fellows. This is just the funniest Tad artwork. Okay, I gotta get this out to show you. So this isn't really the Fellows, it's the Fellows songs with other people doing them, but Tad did all the artwork. So Tad Hutchison. Tad Hutchison is different from the grunge band Tad Doyle. He's a different guy. They're very different. But Tad, the drummer in the Fellows. Here's this guy with a pipe. And it says, this one's for the Fellows. And on the back, more Tad art where it's like the soap. But you get in here and you see the CD, and it's really terrifying. Somebody trying to rip the towel off the guy in the shower. And then the guy's head in the bathtub with all the names of the band on the towels in the back. See, that's excellent. There's the Fellows. There's Scott. There's Tad. Anyway, I highly recommend the Young Fresh Fellows, especially their earlier career. I haven't followed them as much lately, but there's lots of albums here. Electric Bird Digest, Low Beat Time, this one's for the ladies, Topsy Turvy, the Sounds of the Pacific Northwest. All those are great. Songs like Rock and Roll Pest Control, you know, they're so fun live. But okay, so the thing about the Young Fresh Fellows that leads me into the next band, who I have a personal connection to, there was a band in Seattle in the late 70s, early 80s punk scene called the Puds. And my best friend Rob Morgan was the singer for the Puds. And Scott McCoy, who later formed the Young Fresh Fellows, saw the Puds and wrote he wanted to be a rock journalist. Scott McCoy used to write for a local magazine called The Rocket, which I would go up to Seattle and get and pore over and read reviews of bands. And he had a column called Searchin' USA, which is a Young Fresh Fellows song title. But he would go through lots of indie pop bands and give reviews of them. He liked garage rock. The Fellows are kind of garage rock. So he was a fan of the Puds. The Puds broke up. Rob kind of concentrated on being an artist for a while, but then he wanted to be in a rock band again. So he saw the Fellows. He became a fan of the Fellows. He went up to Scott in the Fellows and said, "You're not that great of a lead singer. You need a lead singer. I'm a really great lead singer." And Scott kind of declined and said, "Well, I'm the singer in my band, but we can be in your band." So the Squirrels started off as the Young Fresh Fellows with Rob Morgan as the singer, and they would do cover songs. This is a picture of them. They took Seafair. We have a festival in Seattle called Seafair where they have the hydro races and everything, and they have the Seafair Pirates. Well, somehow the Fellows were able to get a hold of the Seafair Pirates uniforms, and they all dressed up like pirates, and Rob's, being Captain Morgan with a bottle of rum and a switchblade, and they're all acting like they're coming over the side of the Elliott Bay or something. And this is a two-sided EP first album, where this side is all covers of Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, who, if you don't know who they are, they originally did Shakin' All Over, which the Guess Who covered, the Who covered. There's not a version of Shakin' All Over on this, though. They concentrated on other Johnny Kidd and the Pirates songs, which is kind of funny. But it's really great, really good record. And whoever heard of these guys, and why are they doing Johnny Kidd and the Pirates? Okay, so there's this side of the record. I mean, I think that's a pretty funny cover, but what this record is notorious for is the other side of the cover, which, well, I got these fig leaves because I work with plants at work. So we've got fig leaves. We're going to cover them up. So it looks like this. No, I'm not going to do that. I fortunately have a copy of it where I have the strip that makes it safe for YouTube. So this album is called Five Virgins. And if you know John and Yoko's Two Virgins, they're both standing naked on the front cover. And on the back cover, you know, you see them from behind. Well, this is not all of the fellows, because Rob had gotten a different lineup where he kept Tad from the fellows, the drummer. He had his best friend Eric Erickson as a guitarist. He had Joey Klein and Craig Ferguson on guitar and bass. And they wanted to recreate the Two Virgins cover using the band because they thought that was funny. So they put a lot of things down at the bottom, like, the original Two Virgins cover, and let's see, there's things down here like, Beaver and Wally on a Cornflakes box, and the Dave Clark Fives album, Having a Wild Weekend, or something like that. I know, there's a bunch of stuff down there that all are little squirrels add-ins. So it looks like this. But it has the same sort of typeset. And it says, it has a quote from Scott on it, because I think the original has Paul McCartney saying, "When two saints meet, it's a humbling experience." Here it says, "When two great saints meet, it is a humbling experience. Five squirrels, on the other hand, is pretty darn stupid." Scott McCoy. So, you know, I worked in record stores at the time, and this was kind of an album in the local section that was pretty funny looking. This is a great album. This side, they do 60s covers. So they do Amos Moses, which, you know, Alex Harvey, of course, covered. Hair, so there's a version of Hair on this. Me and Roger, which is Joey Klein's original song. And then it's also got, here we go, and Rob did all the, Rob's an incredible letterer and did all the stuff here, where My Babe, which is a Lovin' Spoonful song that they covered, Sweet Young Thing by the Monkees, and Spirit in the Sky, which is like a lounge version. So that's the Squirrels' Five Virgins album. The other one I like by the Squirrels is the next album they did, which I only have a CD, which only came out on CD. This is called What Gives, but if you know the Sensational Alex Harvey Band, it looks just like his album Next, which Rob obviously is a fan of the Sensational Alex Harvey Band. And of course there's more Rob graphics, and it's on Pop Llama Records like the fellows. And it's got The Game of Love, Jonathan Richman's song Vincent van Gogh, One in the Spirit, Timothy by the Buoys, My Gal, again, Lovin' Spoonful, Wild Honey Pie by the Beatles, Let Me by Paul Revere and the Raiders. So it's a lot of, oh, and Woman's Prison, which is a Scott McCoy song from the Young Fresh Fellows. Anyway, I like the squirrels. I'm friends with Rob. I went out with Rob for 6 years, so that's kind of my chance to throw in Rob stuff. It's hard for me to pick a least favorite Squirrels album. They all look good. I don't have all of them right now. I know we know one that's lots of people would talk about, which would be the Not So Bright Side of the Moon, that looks like the Dark Side of the Moon cover, except Rob's head is in the middle and has like a beam of light coming one ear and the rainbow coming out the other ear while he's making a dumb face. This is Harsh Toke of Reality. You know, I've actually never liked this cover that much. It's still a cool cover. Prairie Prince from the Tubes and Rob collaborated on it, so, you know, no reason to not really like it. I like all the inside stuff. But I'm going to pick this one, I guess, as my least favorite. This is an EP they did that's kind of parodying the Sub Pop logo. It was their 25th anniversary EP. And it's just mainly little squirrel knickknacks that Rob had in his apartment that everybody had given him. This one's really freaky. It's a squirrel's cookie jar. So they have all good covers, so picking a lousy cover is kind of a waste of time. Oh, Larry, what do you think? How long is this? Oh, it's almost an hour. Well, that's the deal. You were going to get a long video with me. Okay, that's my entry, and I'm sticking to it, and I hope you guys all took breaks, because I ran my mouth forever and showed you records. Have a good day, and stay safe. Bye.